Hey, everybody. Welcome to a special EBI radio podcast as we get ready for EBI 11 coming to you exclusively on UFC FIGHT PASS. I'm TJ De Santis, along with the man, the myth, the legend, the man who puts the E and the B in the Eddie Bravo Invitational, Mr. Eddie Bravo. Eddie, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for joining me. We are just a few days away as we record until we get to EBI 11. I want to start, though, with EBI 10. It's how we rounded out 2016 down in Mexico City. And, even a few months removed away from that show, I still feel that it was one of the best shows that I personally have ever been involved in, and one of the better shows in not only Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but combat sports as a whole. When you started EBI with Victor Davila, I heard you constantly talking about jiu-jitsu for television, making jiu-jitsu entertaining, and making it, something that would be digestible on television. And I would think that if you were to pick a perfect show through the first 10, EBI 10 would be the one that you would maybe show people, hey, this is what jiu-jitsu has to offer in the mainstream sports world, because it was a great story. Gio Martinez, the underdog to Eddie Cummings, comes in, wins, does it in Mexico. You had some Mexican talent on the undercard or, in the tournament as well. Everything clicked that needed to click to really show that jiu-jitsu is a palatable sport for maybe the uneducated when it comes to the ground game.
Yes, but you really won't get the full spectrum of how great it is unless you see EBI 1 through 9 as well, and see in the beginning, Gio just dominated and just went through everybody. And then Eddie Cummings arrived, EBI 3. We saw we got a little taste of him. And then, EBI 10 wouldn't be that spectacular if it wasn't for the dominance that Eddie Cummings, had.
Right.
He was just mowing through everybody with leg locks. I consider him the best leg locker ever. I don't think I've ever seen anybody. I'm right there on top of him. I've been doing jiu-jitsu over 2 decades, and I'm sitting right on top of him. I got the best seat in the house, and I'm going, God damn, this guy's leg locks are magical.
Right.
And that's a very, very big part of why EBI 10 was so spectacular. You saw, one of the biggest upsets ever, and in just crazy fashion, and and it was super extra sweet because it was Gio. That's my black belt. So, I'm not only the promoter of the show, but I'm also a coach. And, the way Gio won, and again, it was the dominance of the Danaher Death Squad that made EBI 10 so special.
What I think is interesting and that you're hitting on is that EBI 10 is special, but it's the arc of the storyline that you have to get there. And that's what EBI to me has been all about. When I came on board, you and I met at a jiu-jitsu show in L.A., and I believe Eddie Cummings was actually involved. He grappled against Denny
Procopos.
Yep. And then Javi Vasquez was grappling against Gary Tonin.
Yes. And,
it was a super fight. It was largely what most people expect from jiu-jitsu. It's just a couple of matches. We're talking about it. And, for me, I like watching Abu Dhabi, but, when I've watched the streams of Abu Dhabi, it's like a long day. I don't really know who's, grappling who. It doesn't totally make sense, especially if you're getting bits and pieces and you're going all over the place. But with EBI, the tournament tells that story. And I feel like, again, if you're a sports fan and maybe you're not a jiu-jitsu fan, the tournament at EBI will make you a jiu-jitsu fan because you follow, a competitor through the tournament and then through, the evening to the finals, where even if you wouldn't say that you were a fan of a certain person or anything like that, by the time, 2 fighters make it to the finals, you've already seen them compete 3 times, and you might not even realize it, but you're pulling for one of them. You know what I mean? And that's why EBI to me is so special, because it tells that story.
It's the tournament, and you see each match one at a time on the main stage. I think ADCC is the most prestigious grappling event ever. I mean, you win a gold medal at Abu Dhabi, you are considered among the all-time greats in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, without a doubt.
Now,
but I think it's so awesome it's so amazing that, and there's so much going on. There's like 5 or 6 EBIs at the same time going on 3 different matches or 3 different mats.
Yeah.
I think it would be great if there was like the Sheikh Tahnoon just went off and just said, let's do a week of Abu Dhabi. Make it like a vacation, where you get to, where every night, or maybe there's one bracket in the day, one at night throughout the whole weekend. Maybe you could do it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But you know what I mean? You wake up and you go have some breakfast, then you go watch the afternoon division, 60-man bracket. And then you go to dinner, go home, take a nap, shower, and then you watch the nighttime bracket.
Sure.
You do that for 3 or 4 or 5 days or whatever.
Make it a whole getaway.
How amazing would that be?
Yeah.
And it'd be like a vacation, 4 or 5 days. And during the day, or I think if you just do 2 brackets a day, it would be amazing. And you put them on TV or a pay-per-view. And I would go 1,000,000%.
For sure. You've broken some ground when it comes to jiu-jitsu. We're talking about the tournament. We're talking about making it a palatable spectator sport, for television. And, the partnership with Fight Pass came in, and it really kind of changed everything, I think, last year. I think more people are seeing it, more people are digesting it, more people are becoming fans of it. But you've always been progressing. You've always been pushing the envelope and kind of thinking outside of the box. And we see that coming up here with combat jiu-jitsu, and I want to talk about that in a brief moment. But you mentioned Abu Dhabi. You yourself, a veteran of Abu Dhabi, some of the best grapplers in the world. I mean, that's where they are. You're a world champion if you can go get it done there. I'm curious, do you ever foresee yourself maybe reaching out to the Sheikh and going, hey, let's do something like you just laid out here? Do you ever feel that potentially that there could be some cross-branding, co-promotion between EBI and the other great grappling tournaments in the world?
If he was interested in something like that or anything like that, I would be 100% interested. I would love to do something like that, but he doesn't. I mean, Abu Dhabi doesn't need EBI. They're fine without me. They don't need me. But like I said, it's such an amazing show. I wish they had each 16-man bracket separately and made it like a weekend package. And I think that would be amazing. Just because when you put on 3 brackets, 4 or 5 brackets at the same time, they're going back and forth. You lose. It's hard. It's like watching 3 amazing movies at the same time.
Right.
It's really hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's very hard to figure out who is grappling where, and then also too, like when you started EBI, it was 2 tournaments the same night. It was 2 16-man tournaments, and I didn't call one of those cards for you. I came in at EBI 3 where we were focusing on solely one tournament. Even for the commentators, Scott Ross and Eric Cruz, I talk about the first 2 shows with them, and they say how exhausting it was because it was just so much action. And even it was laid out like that with the bracket, you had to kind of keep your I's and T's dotted and crossed because it's just too much, almost too much to absorb.
EBI 1 and 2, we did 2 brackets same night.
Yeah.
We'd go back and forth on the brackets. It was just too much. And then by EBI 3, we realized, we can't do 2 brackets in one night. Let's just stick with 1. And, that ended up being the perfect formula.
Yeah. So Sunday night, UFC Fight Pass, we have the welterweights going at it again. Gordon Ryan trying to capture this title that was once held by Gary Tonin. And it's the dominance of the Danaher Death Squad. That really is the storyline for the last few EBIs. Some people love dominance in sports. Some people despise it. I personally think that when you have a dynasty in sports, whether it's a stick and ball sport like football, whether it's Anderson Silva dominating the middleweight division for many years in the UFC, that dominance, when it finally gives way, those are when the best stories in sports rear their heads. For example, EBI 10.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts? Because like you said a moment ago, that you are not only the founder of EBI and controlling it and whatnot, but you're also a coach. You have your students in there. I mean, heck, I saw the 10th Planet sort of qualifier for EBI 11 the other day, which was super cool. But what are your thoughts on Danaher's guys coming in and kind of upsetting the apple cart and taking over a little bit? Has that been good, you think, for EBI?
It not only has it been good for EBI, but for 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu as well. EBI made me realize that I wasn't doing enough leg locks. Never banned them. Some schools ban them. You can do heel hooks at a lot of jiu-jitsu schools. I always welcomed leg locks. I'm very good at leg compressions. There's different kinds of leg locks. There's like knee bars, toe holds, heel hooks, straight ankle locks, compression locks. There's 5-6 different styles of leg locks, something like that. And I was always really good at compression locks. That's my forte. But heel hooks, I wasn't deep into them enough. I didn't realize how vast the leg lock system is. And John Danaher's been doing, focusing on an elaborate modern day leg lock game that he got from Dean Lister, and he just systemized it like some astrophysicist and created monsters like Gordon Ryan, Eddie Cummings, Gary Tonin. He's got some other guys coming up too, like Gordon Ryan's little brother Nicky Ryan. He's another prodigy coming up. They got Oliver Taza, who's also an EBI 11. He won the qualifiers up in Toronto, Grappling Industries, and so it made me realize that I gotta turn up the leg locks, So it changed, it improved the 10th Planet system. So I got medieval with the leg locks. We love it. It's standard, every heel hook now that's legit, that's been proven. I try to cram it into the system, and we're repping it, and it's making the 10th Planet system a lot stronger. And so we've learned a lot from EBI.
What I like about that is that you're looking at the actual results of EBI and then getting some information and refining the martial art. That's what happened after UFC 1. All of a sudden, the traditional ground strikers or the strikers went, oh man, if I'm going to be a competent martial artist and be able to hold my own in all areas of self-defense, I need to do some ground game. I need to learn what Royce Gracie is doing, and even though jiu-jitsu is obviously all ground, you're still pulling information, and EBI has made you even a better martial artist and a better sensei.
100%, yeah. And the EBI overtime rounds, what that's done to the 10th Planet system is now we have to insert blocks of time to work on EBI overtime rounds, which is EBI overtime is just rear naked chokes and arm bars offensively and defensively. I mean, that is like what jiu-jitsu is all about. Anytime you see a t-shirt, someone doing jiu-jitsu, there's a rear naked choke going on, like some cartoons, or there's like an arm bar going on. Like you look at that, and that's jiu-jitsu right there. If you wouldn't be able to really tell if it was jiu-jitsu if you saw like a sweep. I love sweeps and I love guard passing, but if you took a snapshot of it and then you made like a cartoon picture of it, you'd be like, what's this? Is this bullfighting? What is this?
Right,
is this speed skating? You wouldn't know what it is. Is it rugby? You wouldn't know. So it made us add EBI overtime training. We add it into the curriculum. We do it on we have a warm-up system. Every day we do a different warm-up set. There's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. It's 8 of them. We do them 4 a week, 2-week cycle. We have a curriculum we do for warm-ups. And on A day, D day, and H day, we do, no matter, without wavering, we do EBI overtime rounds for 10 minutes. And, we go, I say choose your weapon, and someone jumps, either chooses the arm bar or the rear naked choke, and we work on it. And working on that and committing to that has improved the level of defense and offense when it comes to rear naked chokes and arm bars tremendously. We never did that before. We never just committed. We'd work on it sometimes, and when I, in jiu-jitsu schools, there's generally no curriculum. It's just every day is like a little mini seminar because every day there's a different batch of people. It's not like university or college where it's the same people showing up every day, and if someone didn't show up, they got to catch up. You're moving along. You know what I mean? Jiu-jitsu isn't like that. Martial arts isn't like that, especially jiu-jitsu. Every night it's a different group. So how could you build on what you did yesterday when today is a whole different group of people? So you can't build on stuff. You just, every day is just like a new mini seminar. So with our system, well, anyways, the bottom line is EBI made it so that I had to make it part of the system, those EBI overtimes. And, without even thinking, A is going to come up, D is going to come up, H is going to come up, and then we're going to do 10 minutes of EBI overtime. And then after a while, it just adds up so much that it's transforming. My EBI is transforming the 10-planet system. We're just creating just rear naked choke and armbar masters, and the defense. The level of defense for 10-planet right now is through the roof. I'm amazed when I watch my guys escape on it. Like, the escapes are just beautiful, professional, and we work on them all the time. So that's what EBI has done for 10-planet, the 10-planet system. It's improved us tremendously.
So I'm not gonna, lie. I'm an MMA guy. I was introduced to all the martial arts via the UFC. Well, that's why
kidding.
That's what I bring that up, though, because there is a interesting dynamic between straight jiu-jitsu people and then MMA people. Like, I think the jiu-jitsu kids look at MMA as kind of like the popular trendy thing, but like maybe you don't necessarily appreciate all areas that make a good mixed martial artist. For example, high level jiu-jitsu. And even in the jiu-jitsu culture, I think that there's a big difference between I call them sport jiu-jitsu players and then the submission only jiu-jitsu players. And I tend to, no disrespect to the gi and no disrespect to the point system, but when I watch a fight, whether it's a mixed martial arts fight or whether it's a jiu-jitsu match, heck, even if it's a pro wrestling match, honestly, which obviously has a worked outcome, I want to believe that whoever has walked away the victor with their hand up is truly the better fighter. Now, when it comes to looking at some of the more sports-related jiu-jitsu competitions with the points, it becomes almost tactical. And don't get me wrong, there are tactics in EBI. I thought Gary Tonin defeated Vinny Magalish with tactics. He was more comfortable with the overtime rounds and how to sort of rack up that time and use that format to his advantage. But I still believe that the better guy on that evening won. That's not always the case when I see somebody win with an advantage point. What do you think the split is like, though, between the sport jiu-jitsu community and the no-gi submission-only community? Do you feel that the people that, prefer to compete in the gi, do you feel that they are they open to the idea of EBI in your rule set, or are they actively fighting it and trying to deny it?
There are some, generally, if you spend most of your time doing something, you're an expert at something, you want to stick with that, and these guys are experts at winning points tournaments, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's different than the submission only scene, so you have to spend a lot more time closing the deal and working on your finishes if in the submission only world to be successful. And in the points world, you don't have to spend any time working on finishes. Points fighters have good submissions as well, but when you're training to win a points tournament, you're wasting your time spending time on submissions. So it's just two different sports. One sport, basically the point system it's all about, like judo is all about throws. Mm-hmm. Judo is all about throwing, but you can submit guys, but it's not necessary.
Right.
Like if someone said, I want to be a judo champion, and he never worked on submissions and he just focused all his time on throws, that'd be a good strategy, because it's like in judo, the submissions are extra. You don't have to spend that much time with them. That's what point jiu-jitsu is like.
Right.
Instead of throwing, it's all about sweeping.
Mm-hmm.
So you spend all your time sweeping and passing. And there are a lot of submission artists in the point system, like Rafa Mendes and Marcelo Garcia, Buchecha, Jacare, Cobrina, Caio Terra, a lot of finishers in the points world. But generally, there ain't that many, and generally, if you spend all your time on the points game, most of your time on the points game, generally you're not going to be that successful in the submission-only game. So you have to choose your sport. You have to choose your style. Look at Gary Tonin, Eddie Cummings, and Gordon Ryan. They haven't really accomplished anything spectacular in the point world. Mm-hmm. Whether in the gi, they haven't really won the Mundials at black belt. They haven't won a no-gi points tournament. Like an IBJJF one, they haven't won the gold medal. They haven't really done anything in the points world.
Sure.
But in the submission-only world, they're superstars.
Let me ask you this, though. From a fan standpoint, who do you want in a street fight with you? Do you want guys that are winning points, or do you want guys that are ripping off, guys' legs? And to me, again, going back to even UFC 1, who did you want on your team? Who did you want backing you up? Did you want Taylor Tooley, who's a gigantic guy who's, intimidating? Or did you want the guy that looks like could get beat up, but he'll throw you on your head and he'll rip your arm off or choke you out and Hoist Gracie? I mean, to me, it's about effective martial arts, because this is, yes, it's a fight. It's a simulated fight to a certain extent. It's not a street fight where anything can happen, but it's about efficiency. And the submission-only guys, to me, they're more efficient rather than a guy who is winning a points tournament and doing so almost like a lawyer wins a court case. You're winning on technicalities and things like that, not just applicable jiu-jitsu and effective jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it to me, that's an interesting way of looking at it, but to me, it's just two different sports.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with the points system, and there's nothing wrong with just being into that and not being into submission only, and there's nothing wrong with just being into submission only and not into the point system. It's like surfers. There's long boarders, there's short boarders. There's just different people. The long boarders, they think the short boarders are whatever, and then the short boarders think the long boarders are like old school or whatever. That there's a division there. That's all. It's just two different sports. One sport focuses on submissions. One focuses on control, top position, passing, and sweeping, which are all crucial, vital, beautiful parts of jiu-jitsu. But there's more parts. There's the finishing part. And if you're going to put jiu-jitsu on TV or on UFC FIGHT PASS, you got to make it as entertaining as possible. You got to make the audience the most important part of the whole format. And, in the points tournaments, the competitor is the most important part, what he thinks and how he feels, because the competitors are the ones that pay for the tournaments. That's how the promoters are making their money, through the competitors. They're not relying on audience or anything like that, or any kind of streaming revenue or TV. That's not going on TV. You know what I mean? So for me, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with the points tournament format that focuses on what the competitors want, what's the most fair for the competitors, and but you just can't put that on TV. It's like chess. Right. It's like chess. Chess is prestigious. You got to be really smart to play it, and it's a beautiful thing. But you're not going to put that on UFC FIGHT PASS. You're not going to put the chess world championships, and that's what, to me, Brazilian jiu-jitsu is with the gi. It's a beautiful art, cerebral art, like chess. I mean, it's how cool is it to choke someone out with their collar, and just, it's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing, but you just can't put that on TV generally, and unless you do it jiu-jitsu events have failed. All of them have failed. All of them. It's like 100% mortality rate. They've all failed. So at this point, to save jiu-jitsu, or not really to save it, but to put it on TV, put it on UFC FIGHT PASS, the only way to do it is like, okay, you got to have a different mindset. We got to make it about the audience, not so much the competitor. Yes, the competitor, of course, matters everything, but we have to let the audience choose the format. And if the audience if you had a studio audience and they had a buttons, they take there's those studio audiences. I don't know what shows were, but they all they vote for something.
Like
what I mean?
Like America's Funniest Home Videos or something. You vote on video 1 or 2 who's going to win. Yeah. Yeah,
and exactly, and the audience members vote.
Yep.
If you had a jiu-jitsu match and it was a draw,
mm-hmm.
and then they had a choice, A, B, and C, how do you want those competitors to decide who goes on, who moves on?
Right.
Judges, EBI overtime, rear naked choke shootout.
Mm-hmm.
So judges, rear naked choke shootout, or whoever gets the first takedown. What do you think they're going to press?
I would say rear naked choke shootout because
rear naked choke shootout, of course.
Because there's a definite winner. First takedown, is that a slip or was that a takedown? You know,
it's the coolest way to decide a winner.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I mean, how many times have judges' decisions been booed and just complained about because judges see things in different perspectives or a judge isn't as informed? You know, I mean, I'm just talking about MMA here, but the list goes on and on when it comes to boxing and whatnot. When I look at EBI and the overtime rules especially, I love the fact that no matter what, you know, when two competitors get on the mat, we will have a winner. There will be no draws. There will be nothing like that. Now, when you look at the sport jiu-jitsus and you know the point system, you can lose a match but also not really lose. If you're tapping out, like, I mean, you're saying you've beaten me. If I stay in this position, I'm going to die or, you know, whatever. Because, I mean, that's the real reality. This is a combat sport. Combat sports, they've developed over time, but it's an application of martial arts, and you're trying to survive and trying to not be the one that is put in a position to where, you know, your life essentially comes to an end or you're so crippled you can no longer compete. Do you feel, though, that the fact that EBI, when it has a definite winner one way or the other, there's no draws, that may keep away some of the more world's-renowned jiu-jitsu players that stay with points, that there's just too much to lose for them when it comes to getting into a tournament like yours where, you know, if they lose, they tap out. It hurts them there in that tournament, but also maybe it hurts their seminars. Maybe it makes them look bad if they try to go make money the way they normally do by traveling the world and getting people to sign up and learn their technique.
I'm not sure. Everyone's different. But one thing is for sure, that the EBI 12, the female flyweights, Sunday, July 9th, we have a lot of points players. A lot of the girls wanted to do black belt world champions. The girls really, not like they're not reacting like the IBJJF men's, you know, that it's just not a good idea for them, you know what I mean? They're the best passers in the world, the best sweepers in the world, maybe not the best finishers in the world, you know? It's a different sport. But the girls are into it. The girls really want to do it. That card got filled immediately, and it's, you know, 5 months out.
Yeah.
The card got filled, and I got an alternate list. It's
coming out of the woodwork.
Oh yeah. You know, because they look at it differently. They look at the opportunity. $20,000 possible grand prize.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of competitors, they don't like the fact that it's you know, if you don't win, you don't get paid, you know, but
it goes back to efficiency.
Yeah, it's really
right?
We got to, you know, jiu-jitsu shows fail. All of them fail. None of them make any money. Still to this day, all these jiu-jitsu shows, none of them, they're all just hanging out. They're all passion projects.
Right.
You know, even EBI. You know, there's not a big pile of money that I'm making.
Right.
You know?
But at least the competitors are walking away with a decent payday if they submit. I mean,
yeah.
You know, I talked about the sport jiu-jitsu players maybe being hesitant getting involved when it comes to you know, taking the chance of losing because maybe it hurts their seminar business. But, you know, for a long time, that was really the only way to make money, I think, in jiu-jitsu. Now you can actually be a competitor and be compensated from the result on the mat, and I think that's a big thing. You look at, you know, the Danaher Death Squad, you know, they've made some decent money. You know, last year alone made some decent money at EBI, and I think that's a big thing to have the competitors compensated for all the training away from just teaching. The
way, the state of the jiu-jitsu scene as far as events like that you could put on TV or Fight Pass, the state of it was just in shambles, in ruins. Just show after show failing. All of them failing. And why? Because only one reason. It wasn't exciting. None of the shows were exciting. If the shows were exciting, then they wouldn't have failed. Obviously, there was no interest. Obviously, that's why there wasn't any money. There wasn't enough interest. It was, and so I had to format the show to guarantee that or pretty much guarantee that the competitors are going to go out there to kill. That's the only way to make it exciting. The only way people are going to watch jiu-jitsu is if they get paid on their performance. You know, Abu Dhabi doesn't pay. You have to win the whole thing as well. And those 16-man brackets that get paid, they do pay a little bit for second and third. Not that much, a couple grand. You know, so and then everyone else, no one else gets paid. They get a flight and they get a hotel and they take care of their fighters good. That's what EBI does. We fly everybody in and put them up in a hotel. But, you know, we don't give any money for second and third. We could have, but then we'd have to, that first place money would be a little smaller. So we could have went, you know, just like ADCC. The winner gets most of the money. Second and third get a little bit. But I just thought, let's just make it gangster. We got to do things different. The state of jiu-jitsu is in shambles. We got to do different. It's got to be gangster. It's set up. It's not an accident. It wasn't like, oh, let's just do it like this. It's set up so to make the competitors go after it. The overtime's like that. The way you get paid is like that. You know, I had to do it like that. I had to put together a show with the audience being the main focus. The audience. And the winner.
Right, yeah.
The audience and the winner. The
For
winner's
sure.
going to get $20,000. Possible. You know, Cummings, Tonin, Gio, Gordon Ryan, they're not complaining about the rules.
No.
They love the rules.
Right.
Why do they love the rules? They love it because that's how they train. They train to kill.
Right.
Like they train to go after it. They're not training to almost sweep someone and then hold them and then go to the next match and pass their guard and just hold them. Don't take a chance. You got 5 more matches. You know, conserve your energy. You know, that's all. That's a format for the competitors.
Right.
EBI is a format for the audience and the guy that wins it all.
Right. No doubt about it. So coming up, UFC Fight Pass this Sunday night. We have the welterweights taking center stage. Gordon Ryan, as you mentioned, is in that bracket. What can you tell us about the field? You know, it changes a lot. There are some dropouts sometimes even the day of the show. But as we record this, it is Tuesday before the Sunday of EBI. You feeling pretty good about how everything's coming together? You know, obviously you work hard to make sure everyone can stay in the tournament. But is everything coming together thus far as we are on this Tuesday ahead of Sunday?
Everything's beautiful. Although Karan Darabedian hurt his knee, so he dropped out. Was really looking forward to watching him compete. But Marcel Goncalves, he's a Brazilian black belt under Cyborg. He took his spot, and he's in tip-top shape. He's getting ready for the Abu Dhabi trials. So it's perfect timing for him. He's on weight. It's his weight division, and he's in shape. So we got an awesome replacement for Karn. But, man, the card is stacked. We got Richie Boogeyman Martinez returning. He's better than ever, stronger than ever. The first time he did the 170, I think it was EBI 3.
Yep.
It was EBI 3. I get all mixed up.
They run together. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the thing. You've done so many shows over the last couple of years. I mean, EBI 11, they've been coming fast and furious, and yeah, excited. Do you know how many shows we're going to try to get in 2017?
Ooh, I think we're going to do EBI 12 July 9th. That's the female flyweights. And then in October, we haven't nailed the date yet, but in October, we're going to do an absolute show. And I meet with Fight Pass tomorrow, and we're going to talk about the details of that. They want to push it. UFC Fight Pass loves EBI. They're fully behind it, and we're going to meet. You know, we've met before, like about a month ago, strategizing about what we can do to blow EBI up. You know, it's a symbiotic thing. EBI is good for UFC Fight Pass, and obviously Fight Pass is great for us. So, there's going to be an October show, absolute show, and then 55 show in December.
Awesome. It's good to hear. It's good that there are things to look forward to. You already mentioned the ladies, you know, putting on a show at EBI 12. But getting back to the welterweights this Sunday night, we have a little bit of a tournament going on within the tournament, combat sports or combat jiu-jitsu. This isn't the first time you've done combat jiu-jitsu. This is something that has been brewing and has happened and now is happening again. Tell me a little bit about what you expect on Sunday, and is this going to take over the tournament a little bit? Is this going to open up some eyes and get people talking about jiu-jitsu with strikes?
Well, I think it was in 2012 originally when I was trying to get combat jiu-jitsu sanctioned. I wanted to do combat jiu-jitsu and EBI from day one.
Mm-hmm.
That was the plan. The plan to do palm strikes on the ground on an open mat, not in a cage.
Right.
But the commission, they didn't want to do anything outside of a cage. It was just, they didn't even know they thought I was probably crazy or something. Trying to, wait a minute, what? It's palm strikes on the ground, but nothing standing. It's like, they didn't know if it was, they didn't know what kind of sport that would be, because it's still mostly jiu-jitsu. It's just palm strikes. It's way more jiu-jitsu than it is MMA.
Right. But it changes everything, though, right? Like, you can't just completely sell out on a leg if your head is exposed. I mean, you might get pummeled.
Yeah, it's going to tweak things up a bit. But I did get it sanctioned with the commission, and we did end up doing 2 combat jiu-jitsu matches. And instead of palm strikes, though, we're using gloves. We got punches on the ground, I was totally cool with that as well. But
what do you prefer then? Do you prefer punches, or you prefer
I prefer palm strikes?
Yeah,
palm strikes. Let's make it more about jiu-jitsu than about MMA. The palm strikes are just there to keep it honest.
Right.
There's going to be some TKOs here and there and some knockouts. I don't think there's going to be that many though.
Right.
It's going to be hard. It's a lot harder when you can't throw elbows. But we'll see. Shit. I could be wrong. Could be wrong. But we did get combat jiu-jitsu sanctioned, and we did Eric Campella Cruz. Yep. EBI commentator. He did the very first combat jiu-jitsu match, and we did it in the cage. It was 3 3-minute rounds. I wanted 1 10-minute round, obviously. So we tested it out at University of MMA. It's an amateur show here in LA. We did. It was an amateur MMA card with 1 special combat jiu-jitsu match, and we did it. Campella won. He got a rear naked choke, and then we did another one. Nate Harris from 10th Planet Santa Fe. He got a rear naked choke as well in that one. It got, mixed reviews. It just, combat jiu-jitsu doesn't look good in a cage. And, you see 2 people in a cage, you want to see MMA. It doesn't, I don't know. To me, I didn't want to do it. I want to do it on an open mat. Like, I just envision, something like there was, before Metamorph, Hickson had a show called Bushido. That was awesome. It was just like Metamorph, but it was a Hickson show. He did 1. And then obviously, like I said earlier, they were just, there wasn't enough money. People weren't paying to see jiu-jitsu. People love doing jiu-jitsu, but watching it, if it's a point system, it's just, the point system is what kills jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is beautiful, and the jiu-jitsu people fall in love with is the jiu-jitsu in your dojo, and no one's counting any points in the dojo. That's where you fall in love with jiu-jitsu. And then all of a sudden you go to a tournament, and then there's you got to know, there's just points, and you gotta know the system, and you gotta, the better you know the system, the better your chances are of winning. And that's not natural. The jiu-jitsu at your dojo, that's natural. There's no points. You're going for a submission. So that's all EBI is. EBI is just natural jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. There's no points. You're just going for submission. It's nothing crazy, nothing new. And the overtimes are based on those drills you do in class. Those rear naked choke drills. It's just jiu-jitsu. And then it's an exciting way the most exciting way, in my opinion, to decide a winner. I mean, you could decide a winner by judges or takedowns or a draw, but I think 90% of the audience would push that rear naked choke shootout way of deciding a winner. So that's what ended up happening. But I decided to put combat jiu-jitsu on a back burner because my show, the vision of my EBI had to be on what you see now. That's what I saw. And, just like Professional Submission League, that was Rico Chipperelli's show. Mm-hmm. I didn't invent anything. I just saw those shows and I go, I want to do a show like that, but with combat jiu-jitsu. And so we ended up just doing submission only. The strikes were it was just getting the commission, they couldn't see it at that point. But after 8-9 shows of EBI, the commission understood, and now they're fully behind it, and it's sanctioned, and it's on now. So it's just.
What do you see the future for combat jiu-jitsu? Do you see it always being sort of the tournament within the tournament, or do you think that we'll get a 16-man bracket where the full show, the full EBI, is combat jiu-jitsu?
I don't know how it's going to look. Maybe it's a disaster. Maybe it was a mistake bringing in combat jiu-jitsu. I don't think so. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it. I think it's going to be successful.
Sure.
Or I don't know about successful because, money determines that, I guess. But is it going to be entertaining? I think so. I think it's going to be entertaining. I think it's going to. It could. We could have the perfect formula the way it is. 16-man regular EBI tournament. Don't change that at all. And in those 3 spots in between each round, you could do a 4-man combat jiu-jitsu tournament. Plus, when you add strikes, maybe you can't do a 16-man tournament with palm strikes. Maybe it's too much.
It's interesting. I wonder, it's going to come down, I think, to the fighters involved, like how many fighters are going to rely on those strikes to open up submissions. You might have some, older MMA guys come in that their plan is just to only strike and maybe take a submission when you go belly down or something like that.
That's going to happen.
I think this will be entertaining for a variety of reasons. One is that MMA element. Talking to guys like Chad George, who's no longer competing in MMA, he's really excited about that opportunity. Yeah. Javi Vasquez, some of these really...
Fabricio Verdum, Yuri Simões. The Brazilians, they like the idea of combat jiu-jitsu because when you look at those old Gracie in action tapes, it's Hicks and Gracie and Horion. Yeah. They're going into Hapkido gyms and doing challenges and hoists against Jason DeLucia. They're just palm striking them with jiu-jitsu. They're not really knocking them out. They're just opening up the submissions.
And another thing, too, about palm strikes in effective actual combat, like in the street, if you take someone down and start punching them in the face, you're going to break your hand. Yeah. Like people in the street, when they are striking, at least the real martial artists, they're slapping you. They're peppering you up with open hands to get that rear naked choke to debilitate you and get you out of there. So, like you mentioned, I think it is kind of that old school mentality and that old school approach to a fight. And I'm very curious to see. You mentioned a guy like Verdum. If Verdum is doing it, this is really interesting. We talked about the entertainment value of EBI. I'm curious, the rule set for EBI is what really makes it entertaining, the rear naked choke, shootout, etc. Are there any different rules for combat jiu-jitsu, or is it the same thing just with the addition of palm strikes?
Combat jiu-jitsu is basically EBI rules, but you can palm strike as long as one competitor is grounded. Okay. So if they're both standing, it's just wrestling.
Same overtime rules, though, and everything?
The overtime, there's no strike. So the EBI, the combat jiu-jitsu overtime is exactly like regular EBI overtime. No strikes in overtime for combat jiu-jitsu, only within the regulation.
And then when it comes to striking, I assume the sort of MMA rules apply. No strikes to the back of the head.
Exactly.
Things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You and Victor are going to be the referees for?
No, Mike Beltran is going to ref. Yeah, we're bringing in this is a sanctioned event. We're bringing in inspectors, and it's wild.
What is that like? I mean, that's a different world, having officials kind of sticking their nose.
It's a mini. They're sending a mini crew because the bulk of the show is just jiu-jitsu, and then we got this 4-man. Right. There's only 4 competitors, so they don't.
You're not inspecting hand wraps and wrapping hands and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. So it's a mini crew they're sending.
Sure.
I think 3 inspectors. I think they're sending, and 1 ref. Generally, like an MMA show, they'd send 3 refs, 10 inspectors, and you got to be. There has to be an inspector watching the fighters at all times. Right. So you're assigned an inspector. So but with this show, since there's only 4 fighters, we're gonna have 3 inspectors and a ref.
Now, the jiu-jitsu community, especially the pool of talent at EBI, it's a very chill community. Yeah, these guys are, competing against one another, but the locker room is just a big room, But with combat jiu-jitsu, the element of strikes being added, I don't want to say that it flares emotions, but sometimes tempers flare a little bit, especially when you're getting hit in the face. This is why I think you see wrestlers compete for that same spot on a wrestling team, and they're friends afterwards. Some guys can't fight one another and be okay with each other after they've punched each other's faces in. Now, obviously, there's no punching, but do you feel that same sort of dynamic is going to exist, the respect level to where they can be in the same room pre and post fight? With the normal EBI rules, do you think that will transfer over to the combat jiu-jitsu players, or are we going to have to keep them separated on opposite sides of the room?
That's a good question. I don't know how that's going to work out. I'm not sure. Maybe we have the perfect formula now: 16-man regular EBI, 4-man combat jiu-jitsu tournament. But maybe after a while, if combat jiu-jitsu takes off and people like it, maybe that combat jiu-jitsu belt will mean more than that regular EBI belt. I'm not sure. And then it's going to be like, who knows? In some dimension, combat jiu-jitsu takes over, and regular EBI rules after a while seem like child's play. I don't know.
Right.
Or maybe combat jiu-jitsu just takes a big shit and dies, and and then I realize, you know what? I just opened up a can of worms that I didn't want to. Let's just keep it the way we're doing it. Fuck combat jiu-jitsu. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think combat jiu-jitsu will be entertaining, but I'm not sure.
You mentioned crowning a champion. I'm interested in how you're going to handle that. Is it going to be similar to EBI, where you can only be a champion if you win a tournament, or are you open to the idea of crowning champions through a tournament, and then we just have one-off matches where you defend your title and you don't have to go through a tournament to retain?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. Maybe I think the tournament aspect of EBI, that's the secret. That's the magic.
Right.
You know, it's really, you just put 16 quality guys together. It's just it's hard to mess that up.
Sure.
You know,
and the tournament always delivers something that you're not expecting to. Just the fact that, like, you'll have a guy come out of nowhere and just pull off a couple of upsets, or you see someone in the semifinals that you didn't expect to get past round number 2, and it's just like, you always walk away with, man, I didn't expect that coming, but I'm so happy that was the result.
Yeah. It's, you know, I can't believe we've lasted this long. I didn't know what to expect, you know. Me and Victor just did one show and just like, the show is over. And I remember looking at him and asking him, like, do we have the tapes for sure? Did it record for real?
Right.
Can you check that?
Yeah.
We're just happy that we got one.
Now, I mean, we're going into number 11. I know we got to wrap up here. It's a busy week for you, and I appreciate you being so gracious with your time.
Man.
But
anytime.
I'm curious, are you still living? I mean, obviously you have plans, you know, for 12 and 13 and going forward, but does this feel, are you willing to admit now that this is something that is going to be around for years to come, that this isn't still just one show after another, or, you know, one Fight Pass deal after another, that this is, you know, here to stay?
I hope so. It's looking like that. But, you know, we still got a lot of work to do. I mean, you know, it's like EBI. It's like EBI is like a band that got signed to Capitol Records, you know, and that first deal, you know, they're,
sure.
You know, people, you know, in the jiu-jitsu world and in the MMA world, EBI is kind of popular. But, you know, I knew bands that were signed to Capitol, you know, major label, and, you know, the drummer, they gave him a $30,000 check. He was in a major band, and he bought a car, and it was gone. And he's in a major touring rock band, and he has nothing.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I am hoping for the best, and I would put my money on the fact that it will be successful, you know, monetarily. But we're still not out of the woods yet, man. You know, we're still relatively tiny, not that big.
But that's also what I think makes this work so well. The team that you surround yourself with, the crew that went down to Mexico and took this thing literally internationally. Like, it wasn't in the Orpheum. It wasn't in a theater in downtown LA. Like, it was in Mexico City, far away from everything that was familiar. And it worked. And it worked so well. And I can't encourage people enough that if you haven't seen EBI 10, go over to Fight Pass, watch it, because even if you know the result, just that ride to get there is one of the best, not in combat sports, but in sports in general. And
wow, man, that's a beautiful thing to say.
It's true. It's really great, and it makes me optimistic for the future, because when you talked about making jiu-jitsu a television-friendly sport, that is the type of event that I pictured, and I honestly didn't know if that was attainable. I really didn't, because, I mean, I had watched Abu Dhabi, the best. I used to buy those from Sherdog. Jeff Sherwood would sell the Abu Dhabi Best of Volume 1, 2, 3, and I would watch them, and there were a few matches that I was like, yeah, this is really entertaining, but, like, for the most part, I couldn't have a friend come over and watch Tito Ortiz versus Ricardo Arona and feel good about it. Like, I wasn't selling them on a match like that, you know, and I mean, like when you beat Hoyler, like that was a big deal. You know, an American tapped out of Gracie, that was a big deal. But those are the like once in a lifetime at that point moments that I could tell someone this is big because of this. This is why you should watch this. I don't have that with EBI, especially with EBI 10. You can sit down, you can watch it, you can know absolutely nothing about jiu-jitsu and fall in love with elements of the show, whether it's the tournament, whether it's Gio, you know, taking back the crown and getting a win for 10th Planet against the Danaher Death Squad member who's been wrecking shop and running game. And it's really great to see that. And that's what jiu-jitsu, for me, needs to be popular and entertaining. And you get that. You get that with EBI.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I think it's, if you're listening and you've never watched an EBI, I would highly recommend watching the EBI series Evolution of the Ground. Man, that's what I give anybody interested in finding out what it's about. Just watch that first, and then go to UFC Fight Pass. Just start from the beginning. Watch EBI 1 all the way through 10. Just, it's like, consider it like a, you know, like Game of Thrones or Westworld.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean,
binge on it.
There is a story to it.
Because it's a tournament.
Yeah.
It's a tournament within those 10 EBIs, really.
No, you're right.
I mean, it's a story. There's a long story, and the Danaher Death Squad are a gigantic, crucial part of the story.
And there's swerves in that story as well, because you're like, all right, we're going to see Gordon Ryan go for the light heavyweight championship tonight. Let's go. Let's turn it on. Wait, why is Gary Tonin here? Oh, he doesn't have a chance. Gary Tonin doesn't have a chance. He's tiny man. We saw him lose in the absolutes. He's not going to do well against 205-pounders. Yeah. Oh, wait. What happens? Yeah.
He wins.
Spoiler
against
alert.
Vinny Magalhaes. I mean, Jesus.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing. And you never know what is going to happen. And EBI 11 is another chapter. Can't wait for it, Eddie. Appreciate the time.
This Sunday. Don't miss it.
Yes, sir. UFC Fight Pass is where you need to go. A lot of action going on this weekend as well. With UFC 209 in Vegas. So, get that Fight Pass subscription up to date and make sure you're on Fight Pass Sunday night for EBI 11, as it is all about the welterweights. For Eddie Bravo, I'm TJ De Santis. We'll see you Sunday live on UFC Fight Pass.
Yeah.